now. Gonna get the link. And yep, audio's good. All right, so we're starting to record now. All right, thank you everyone for coming. Thank you and welcome to 2021 Virtual Christmas Summit brought to you by Boscoyo Studio. This presentation is sponsored by Gilbert Engineering. So for this presentation, Nathan is allowing anybody at any time, people can speak up and ask a question. I will, if you put it in chat, I will relay it right away to Nathan. Nathan will, if he knows that he can touch up on that subject later, he will. So he'll do his best as answering the questions. And this is Nathan, and this presentation is about P-panel enclosures and building them. So Nathan, thank you so much, and it's all you.
Thanks, Keith. Looks like we got a pretty good group in here. So I got a phone call from Brian McVeigh a couple of weeks ago, and he asked me if I would do an enclosure build for you guys. So that's what we're going to try and do today. There's a lot of stuff that I'm going to try and cover as far as the things that I've learned with the panel enclosures. Now, I just a little bit about myself. I've been doing an animated display for 6 years. Well, this will be my 6th year. And I've had panels in my display every year except my very first one. So I've done them a lot, and I have a lot of experience with them. And so I guess that's why he asked me to do this. But I'm gonna try my best to explain everything that I've learned, and I understand that there are multiple ways to skin this cat. So I'm just going to show you how I like to do it. And hopefully I can give you guys some ideas and you can share them with me as well. With that, we have about an hour to kill, so we'll get started. And um, you should have got a list of your items to that we'll be using for this build. I'm not going to go through a lot of the software side of that. Greg Macri from over in the UK, he's had a room where he's been explaining, going through the different panel types, the different controller types. So we're not going to try and cover any of that today. We'll just put together what I have, and I'll explain why I use it, and we'll go from there. So um, when I do my builds, I try to make them um, as easy to build as possible, but I also try and make them. I try to make them so I don't have to do a lot of maintenance on them over the years, and so um, a lot of people use wood products. I've seen people try and 3D print a whole bunch of stuff. What I use is I use a frame, and then I just wrap it in a um, PVC, they call it trim board. You can buy it at any of your local hardware stores, and it turns out pretty slick. So let me get some stuff on the table, and we'll get started. So my camera here really quick. There we go. So this is the framework that I start out with. This is just angle iron. It's steel, and it's welded together, and then I just spray painted it black. Um, how I came up with that idea was I wanted something that was strong that I could stick my panels to, and but I also wanted it to be the structure of the whole framework. So these are the panels. This is a P5 panel. Excuse, I got a little spring on there. P5 panel, which I use in all of my displays. And I use the little magnetic standoffs. You can see those there. And what they do, pull this back into place. They just stick right here on the panel, on that metal. They're standoffs, so that's what they look on the back side. So we'll get that. But this process can be used virtually from any size. Today we'll just be doing a 2x3 build, so 2 wide and 3 high. But you can use it to do just about anything. So here's some pictures of my larger one that I've built. So I have, this is an 8 wide by 7 high. You see I've got the metal framework in there. I don't know if I have the picture of the actual one that when I was building the frame, but come on. It's being a little slow for us today. So there's all my panels that were prepped with the magnetic standoffs. And then here's the whole thing with it, all of the panels on that big frame. So this measures like just a little over 8 feet. That's like 102 inches wide and then about 45 inches tall. So it's pretty big. And then here's the back side of it after we've got them put on. And then as we were wiring it here, and then here's just a completed video of it once it's all done. So like I said, this can be done on large scale, or it can be just done on small scale. So let me push this out of the way and we'll get going on this. So first thing you're going to do is, what I like to do is I just take my panels, get them all prepped, and then I just lay them out in the configuration that I'm going to use. So in this case, it was a 3x3 or 3x2. There we go. And these can be, at this point, I'm not orientating them right. What I did is I just put all my panels the way I was going to do it. Then I measured them, the width, the height, and then I built my frame that was just a 1/4 inch bigger than the panel width. So I can't remember what this width was, 25. So that was 25 and 1/8. And so I made my width on my frame 25 and 3/8. Same with, I know I did the same thing on the height. That's pretty simple. This isn't a plug for wired watts, but all of the stuff that I have in all the electronics and the components were from wired watts from Ken. So this is actually one that I put together, and I've been using it in my display for the last 2 years, but I just wanted to tear it apart and rebuild it for you guys so you can see what I'm doing. So we got my still frame. Another option that you can use for your framing, if you don't want to use the steel angle iron, because you do need to use, you either have to have a welder so you can do it yourself, or know somebody that can weld these up for you. So if you don't have that, the other option is that I have thought about using is you can buy a steel stud. This is a steel stud. They're just a 22 gauge aluminum, and you can cut them down to fit and bend and screw them together to make it fit your display just as easy. So we'll lay this out, get all our panels in place. I went ahead and done a lot of the pre-work because I didn't want to have to screw all my magnets in and all that stuff, since we are kind of time restrained. when you're putting your frames together, you just want to make sure you're building them as square as you can, because the panels won't fit right unless if you don't give yourself the right amount of room. So these panels, they just snap right on. They're really slick. They hold together really tight. And I think these magnets, you can buy 100 of them for $20 or something like that. They're not, or they do come, if you buy them from an overseas vendor, your panels, generally the magnet standoffs will come with them as well. So that's pretty much the panels. Once they're on, I just gotta make sure I got them squared up with the frame, because that's gonna be critical. And then keeping them as tight as you can as you're putting them together. So we're not just going to be going over an enclosure build here. We're going to also be just doing the whole thing start to finish. I'm not setting up FPP or a color light card, but I will be using those both in this pretty much the panels. So once those are on, we just flip it over and we start wiring up all of our panels. So on these, your start channel, I always start in the top left, which will be, that is from the back side, not the front. So just push these in. All of your ribbon cables are keyed. So they'll have one of the wires will have a red line, and that will always be the same way on all of your panels, usually on the top. So, I said, in the past, I built these out of a PVC enclosure, but I didn't use the steel frame. I used aluminum, and it wasn't, for something this size, it was probably okay. As far as the structure's concerned with the build, but it doesn't work with the magnets. You have to use the plastic Boscoio strips or whoever sells those. I don't even remember where I got the last ones that I used. So that being said, oh, we have about 30 people in here. That's pretty good. So you guys must trust me with your lives on these things, I guess. I don't know. I originally wasn't the one supposed to be doing this build project. They asked Keith Johnson, and I guess he wasn't available. So the last minute, I guess I was second choice. But that's still better than not a choice at all, I guess, right? So ribbon cables. So these, I'm using a color light card. With other different controllers, you can make your daisy chain. You could do this on one output and just daisy chain it, so just be follow all the way back. But color light cards are a little trickier. They like to have one row per output, so that's why I've had this. And any controller will be able to handle this many panels pretty easy. So here I've got my color light card. This is the 75B, which is the 8 port, and then I've got a Raspberry Pi. I believe that's the 3 plus in this one. I do have 3 color light cards that I run in my show. One on my large P5, and then I have, actually I'm running 4 because I have 2 tune 2 sides, and I have another P5 that just kind of, it used to be my tune sign, but now it's part of my display, so it runs some matrices and stuff on it, effects, that kind of stuff. So throw our color light card in here. Now this is, since this is only 6 panels, I'm not worried about power distribution. I'm not worried about any of that other stuff that goes along with it. Actually, before we put that in, let's get our power. Our Y connector is plugged in. So each panel is going to be needing its own power. Now, raise of hands, how many people in here are actually using P5s? How many are using panels in their displays? Because, or if you're just trying to get an idea of what it takes to build one of these. Let's see, I'm not watching the comments here, so I can't really see what's going on. Yeah, sounds good. Okay, well, let's keep going. Okay, okay. Well, I would I would suggest starting on a massive P5. You know, things have come a long way since I've started. Back when I was first building panels, P10s were the thing. And when you weren't building super big ones, and I jumped right into the large panels once I got comfortable with them. So, someone have a question?
I'm confused with it all.
You're confused with it all?
Yeah, like I don't know what would be best between the P5s, the P10s, the outdoor, the indoor, what it takes to run them. The bigger part of it all is I would probably want one for a turn 2 sign, but it's the enclosure.
Okay. Well,
Like there's a lot of comments that, you know, it has to be waterproof 100%, but then you have to have some kind of airflow so it doesn't get all nice and moisture inside of it. So
yeah. Well, when we get to when we get to where we're sewing it up, I'll show you that part of it, because I've had the same issue or this same thoughts go through my head about how tight, watertight they need to be. I live in a pretty dry area, but there's still moisture in the air. So
yeah, I mean, I mean, I'm pretty much right there with you. I live in Virginia, and I mean, you have your cold days, you have your hot days, you have your cold nights, you have your hot nights.
Yep.
So one or another, you know, even if it's not raining, you know, you're still going to build condensation if you're not venting it correctly with all that, you know, electrical components going on.
That's right. And as far as the type of panel to use, me personally, I've used P10s, I've used P5s. 10 times out of 10, I'm going to choose the P5 now, just because the cost difference in the panels really aren't that much. You're going to spend a little bit more money on power supplies because they take more power, and then you might need to consider something else to drive them. But other than that, I would use a P5 just because of the pixel density is so much better. Okay. Yeah. I mean, depending on where you live, you're going to want them a little more watertight. But I personally don't even do them watertight at all. The way I put them together is I make it so that the water kind of just sheds off of the panel, off the enclosure, and just drops right to the ground.
What about like your horizontal rain or your, you know?
I do a little bit of caulking in the sills, in the joints, but I try and make it so that if there was any moisture that got in it, it would just weep right out the bottom.
Right.
And that's another thing with the steel is you have to make sure you paint it so that it doesn't rot.
Like I'm almost tempted to just build that kind of frame like you're doing and just stick it in a window and be done with it.
I have built these frames for people and actually shipped them to them, but I wouldn't recommend that just because it's a lot of money to ship.
Where do you live at?
I live in Utah, southern Utah.
It wouldn't cost that much to ship to me. I might have to get your contact info. Not that I'm a lazy person or nothing, but you know, I don't have a welder, this, that, and another.
Yeah.
I mean, I know how to build houses and everything, but I'm kind of stuck with the whole, like there's a guy that I found on YouTube that pretty much does the whole pixel thing, and they have a um or not pixel thing, good God. The you know P panels and everything. And he's got a nice enclosure, but then I was showing it to somebody and they're like, yeah, well, right here in the comments, it says that, it's not even waterproof. And it's just like, like, and it was somebody out of the country, and it would cost a shitload of money to send to me. So I was just like, nah.
Yeah. Now there are vendors that sell an extruded aluminum enclosures. I have not priced them out. They look pretty awesome, but I'm more of a DIY guy, so I like to just.
I am too, but like I said, I've pretty much, this is my first year. I've already done 10,000 pixels. I got like 15 power supplies right now. I got my controllers, I got my smart receivers, and then everything else. And I was even going to do 3 matrix. One is 4 foot by 8 foot wide. Or no, yeah, 4 foot tall by 8 foot wide, and then the other ones, are like your standard window size. And I was going to hang them over my windows. And I was just going to do like my turn 2 sign on one of the smaller windows, and have my matrix do like pictures or whatever on the big one. So then I started kind of steering away from the P panels, because it's it seems like it's a lot.
It can be intimidating,
especially like I said, it's like buying a toothbrush. It can't be simple. This is what this is what you got to have. It's P5s, P10s, indoor, outdoor. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, outdoor are a little different, more different animal. I haven't really messed with those much.
I think the difference is the outdoor rated ones are brighter, but they're also waterproof on the front. I think
they're brighter. They require more power because they are brighter, and the back of the components are still not waterproof.
Yeah, it's only the front part. Plus, it's got like a rubber sill that goes along the back, but the components of the actual brains of it is not waterproof.
That's right. The electronics in the back still need to be sealed, and they'll come with a waterproofing gasket. So when you put your panels together, you can waterproof them that way, seal them off. But I haven't used them. I haven't messed with them. I've liked this method with the indoor panels, and just putting them in an enclosure.
Oh yeah, I mean I like that already.
Yeah. I'm using this is just a 350 watt.
And everything attached to a cutting board.
No, I'm sorry, this is a 70 amp power supply. It's a big one. Way overkill for this build. But now that we've got that in place. Okay. Bob, that's awesome. I'm glad I don't know if I'm the one inspiring people, but we have a DIY panel group that we use to help share ideas on Facebook. If you guys are not a part of that group, I encourage you to find it and get on there. I'm an admin for that group, so I can definitely get you in there pretty easy. The 56 panel build, though, that's a big thing to get started with. I started with 220 panels, P10s, and then moved up from there. But then he said he was in Alabama. Is that correct? New Jersey. Okay. Well, make sure you get your power, your hots, and your grounds on the right place on that power supply. And then, like I said before, I'm not using anything because it's just a quick or a small build here. Try and get through this just as fast as I can so I can get to the part that you guys are interested in. I won't be going through any programming either, but once we got it up and running, I will plug it in and then you guys can see how it looks when it's all done. So that's pretty much it. You know, I've taken my color light card and my Raspberry Pi, and I've just zip tied them to a. Man, why do I keep getting that focus? That's driving me nuts. I just zip tied them to a cheap 50-cent breadboard from the dollar store, and then I hooked my color light card up, power to, and my Pi are all coming from that same power source. So now that we have that done, I didn't do anything with the power supply. It's just kind of loose inside of there. I know I should do something with that, but I haven't got that far in my build to figure out how I want to do that. And had a little accident. Pushed my panel out.
Oh, everybody, time to leave the room. No, I'm just playing.
Yeah, everyone. I just bombed this one.
Failure.
Okay. I'm gonna set that to the side for a minute since that's done. And then I don't know if any of you guys are familiar with the PVC trim board, but it's just a PVC plastic board. It comes in, it's called a 1x6 width, and it's 5.5 inches wide by 3/4 inch, and it's they come in 12-foot sections. So what I done is I measured what I needed for my panels, and I cut them all the length, and then I took my saw blade, and I just curved lines just right down here. This is where my acrylic glass is going to sit. So I already had the acrylic. I personally like to use the polycarbonate, but when I was building this one, the supplier I was getting from they were out of it, so I just used the acrylic plastic. The reason why I don't like it is because it scratches really easy, and over time it starts to get foggy and fade. And it just overall isn't a very good product for a long term. So I got my saw curves. I just cut them all the way through. I wasn't worried about any holes at the ends as we put them together, because when they're finished, it's going to be overlapped, and then we'll just take some caulking and we'll fill those holes in. So I don't know if you can see that right there. There's a little bit of caulk in the end there because I tore this apart when I was building it. I'm not going to bother caulking it today, but I will point out where I do all of those caulk joints. So the first one, the top board, is going to be the same, the overall width of your panels, your panel mount, plus 2 widths of this, because I want the top to completely overlap the bottom or the sides. So we're going to lay them out in that fashion. And I believe I marked these so that I can put them together right the same way. So all my screw holes line up. Now, you will want to go through and pre-drill all your holes. I didn't do that this time because they were already done. So if my holes line up, if I got them in the right spot, they should line up just right. These are just 1 5/8 wood screw. Doesn't have to be anything. Doesn't have to be anything special. The wood screws are a little more coarse, so they do tend to hold a little bit better. You can use these just metal screws, metal tap screws, but like I said, the wood screws I found hold the best. They give you the best bite on the plastic. especially because you don't want to over tighten these because they can strip out. But if you're careful, you won't need to. Now this is, I better stop right here before I go too far, because this is where these are two joints right here. So before I put these together, I'd normally run a bead of caulk in between the two right here as there, and then I would screw that together so that is sealed. I didn't do that this time because I will be taking it apart and after I'm done with our thing today and rebuilding that. I just didn't want to get caulking all over my table. So on the bottom half, let's slide this down a little bit. So now you can see on the bottom, I have two saw curves right here. Well, I don't want to have my, I'm going to have my plexiglass come down on the front and the back, and it's going to be both sides. So I cut my bottom piece to just go in between those two saw curves. So you can see I just cut it off. It's about, so it ends up being about 1.5 inches narrower than whatever. You can decide how far in and out these saw curves you want to put from the edge. These are about 3/4 of an inch from the inside. Let's just double check. Yeah, so I'm actually, I'm 1/2 inch to the front of the curve and about 3/4 to the back. A little bit less. So lay this bottom down, and then we'll throw this piece in here. Any questions so far of this PVC? Nothing so far. That must mean they either like me or they don't.
Just put it all together for me, and I'll send you my address, and I'll send you some money.
Okay. At that point, we may as well just build the whole thing and just ship panels and everything to you.
That's what I just said. Just build it all, ready to go. All I gotta do is plug it in, set it up to X lights, and I'm ready to rock and roll.
There you go.
You just brought me a dollar amount.
Okay. There's our main box. This is going to be in the front, so I'm going to flip it over. Not quite yet. So my lights keep going off on me. Here's my acrylic, so I'm going to slide this in. So I like to put the front one in. It's a little tight. I think I might have. Oh yeah. Yeah, I don't watch the Martha Stewart stuff. I just watch this all day long. I think I got this one on backwards, so I got to flip it around really quick. My screw holes aren't quite lining up. My plastic won't go in. Oh yeah, it was wrong. Okay. I can't remember who's the sponsor for this build today. Is it GE?
This build is sponsored by Gilbert Engineering.
Okay. Awesome. Are they doing any raffles in this room today? Yes, the polycarbonate is definitely a lot better product. It won't crack as easy. It won't scratch as easy. If you have to drill holes in it, it isn't going to break out like an acrylic glass will. With acrylic, you have to be really careful with it.
And it won't just color over time either.
No. And for someone that wants to use it for multiple holidays, that would probably be a big factor. The downfall of that is when you start getting into larger builds, your acrylic can get really expensive, or your polycarbonate can get really expensive really fast.
I was about to say, for the price, just use it, twice a year or whatever, twice a season, and then just turn around and replace the plexiglass again for the price of it.
Yeah, it might be a good option. The polycarbonate is a lot easier to work with. And it is.
Oh yeah, but it's quite.
It is clearer too. You can kind of see the fogginess on this glass already. And this is only a couple of years old. So.
But if you got those panels right close to it, I don't think that it would really show too horribly bad.
Not too bad. Just in the light it does. So we boxes in. Now and then we just take our guts. We're just going to slide them right inside that cabinet. Whoops. That's a little fast. But so she fits just like she's supposed to. Okay. And then on that framework, I've actually gone and I didn't show this before, but I've drilled holes, around the perimeter of that frame. And then I just take my screws. Hopefully I got this in the right spot. Check everything. Oh, helps if I have it in. Up. Okay. I did a boo-boo. I gotta take my panels off because I put them on my frame upside down. This will only take half a second to do this. I should have paid attention to that. Sorry, guys. Yes, if you have, depending on where you live, we on the East Coast, I'm not sure about them, but on the West Coast we have a place called Regional Supply. They're a wholesaler and they sell all of the plastics and stuff. So that's where I get mine from. Just to give you an idea about how much I paid for mine. So on my large one, I had to get a custom sheet because 8 panels wide is more than 8 feet, and most places only give you an 8 by sell them in 4 by 8 sheets. So I went to a supplier and they sold me they sell the sheets in 52 inches wide, and then you can get it cut to any length. So I just got 10 sheets by 52 or 10 feet by 52, and they were about $275 a sheet. So they can get really pricey. Once you start getting into the bigger polycarbonates also, though, they do give you it's a little bit thicker on the glass. So that's one thing to be mindful of when you're building stuff. So you will have a little bit of a bigger softer in your plastic that you put on around your frame. Thanks, Steve, for that question. You'd have to check with the a sign company on your in your area to see if they sell stuff like that. I don't have a list of all of the places you can get that. I just know where I got mine from. So heat dissipation, that's a good question. That's another reason why I don't still my enclosures completely, because they need to let the heat escape, especially when you have a large panel display. That black panel surface will attract a lot of heat in there. So if you're not careful, you can damage your panels from the heat too, not just water. So a lot of people will use like it's a bud called a bud vent. They're just little round vents that you can put your put inside your enclosure to help let the air out. And those are they have a top and a bottom to them. So if you ever were to try and get where you were to ever get moisture in there or rain against them, it would just shut it off. So
yeah, you can get them from Wired Watts.
What's that?
I said you can get those from Wired Watts.
The bud vents, yeah.
Yeah, I got like 15 of them.
There you go.
And they're not horribly expensive. They're like a couple of bucks a piece.
Yeah. Okay. Almost there. I had to backtrack here for a minute. Almost there. I should be a pro at this, how many times I put it together. There are, but I don't, they're not very sturdy when you get into the bigger pieces. So I personally haven't used those, so I can't really make much of a comment on that. Like I said, there are probably lots of other products out there that you can use. This is just what I've used over the last few years. And to me, it seemed to be the best product out there. So just a couple more plugs here, and then we'll put the back on. Awesome. How are we doing on time? Oh, perfect. So I didn't attach my power supply to anything. It just kind of dangles there. But I did take some I will take some zip ties here, and I'll just zip tie this breadboard into place. The Raspberry Pi here is running FPP for anybody that's wondering. It's on the SD card. And I run all these on a remote. I don't run them with Wi-Fi. I don't hardwire them anymore, just because it's a long ways to run my tune-in signs are on the corners of my property, so it's a long ways to run them. So I just figure Wi-Fi is pretty handy. Okay, now we're back to where we're screwing these in. We'll just take these screws and we'll just attach this. So this is where you're gonna get all your strength from your frame. Is just attaching this right to the steel. Makes it really nice. Plus when you start getting into bigger builds, a lot of times the tops and the bottoms here the bottoms will want to sag. And when we do it this way, it takes a lot, gives a lot of strength. And it doesn't want to do that. On the back, here's the back piece. I just cut a cable gland here for the power, and I've got a cable gland going into the color light card. That's, if I ever want to configure the color light card, I can just hardwire it right into there. I got my termination here with the RJ4046, RJ45, that one. You know which one I'm talking about, the Ethernet. And it's just an access in case you need to mess with that. All of the Pi can be done wirelessly, so I don't worry about that too much. Put my power up here really quick. 10 points to the person who can tell me what colors go where. European have different color plugs than us Americans for some reason. Black is load, white is neutral, and green is earth or ground. So that's in. Everything's ready to go. I just need to slide these into place. I don't like to slide them all the way up, so I'll just kind of bend them and get them into where they go. Now the plastic can be a little tricky to get them in, so I like to just stand it up on the top like this. That kind of takes all of the work out of it, and then it'll just slide right in. Once it's done, you can see my power supply moving all over the place down there. Once that's done, we'll just screw in the back. I did skip one step, but I didn't do it. I did it intentionally. So I do have some eye bolts that I use. So these eye bolts will just mount to the top up here. See these holes? They'll go in those holes, and that also goes through the steel, and that gives me the ability to hang it on anything that I want. These are small enough that you can hang them. You don't need to worry about you don't need to worry about them falling apart because of the weight. Now a bigger one, once you get up into like 4x4 or something, 4x4, 5x5, somewhere in there, that's when you're going to want to start taking the time to set them on the ground versus trying to hang them from something, because they get to be heavy. If you do go with the aluminum, or not aluminum, the steel studs, those will take you'll still get the structure, but it'll also take a lot of the weight out of that. A lot of these weight out of the build, because this one right here, finished the way it is right now, probably weighs about 50 pounds, 45, 50 pounds, somewhere in there. So if you look at it closely, you can see the way that I put it together. Now the top goes across, so that overlaps the sides, and then the bottom piece goes in between. So as your water hits it, it's just going to naturally shed down and around the bottom. When I get to the point where I'm sealing it, I'll loosen this caulk joint, those screw joints up. I'll caulk that, and then anything that penetrates the top. So these screw holes here, I'll put some caulking over the top of that. Just a plumber's caulking, doesn't have to be anything special. I don't use silicone caulking, because the silicone will not stick to the PVC board. It'll just make a mess. So if you're going to use any caulking, that's what you want to use, like a tub and tile type caulking. And then I don't do anything on the bottom. The bottoms they'll stay open. So if I get any moisture, they'll just sweep out of these holes right here on the side. when you're building them this way though, you want to make sure that when this is finished, you want to fill the whole thing. You don't want, with the magnets, you don't want to have very many gaps, because the heating and the expansion and contraction from the heat, that's what I was trying to say. Heating, expansion and contraction can cause the panels to move around just a little bit. So I like to have them close to the bottom as I can and close to one side or the other. And then if you're an 1/8 of an inch gap on each side isn't too bad. So that's the entire build. I mean, we did that in what, 40 minutes? That was with me talking. But I did have a lot of the stuff pre-made, so that does make a difference. Let's see if I got some power. So FPP is installed. The color light card is set up with the LED vision software. And I've got just some basic tune-in sequences running on my Tune 2 sign. Now, I don't just use this Tune 2 sign strictly for the radio station. I'll also use it so I can have my playlist scrolling across it. I have a lot of people that come and they want to say, "Oh, when does this song come on?" And I say, "Well, look at the playlist. We'll play it." I know that's kind of a cop out, but I kind of get tired of repeating that. So I made it that. And then if we have any announcements that are going on in the community, any concerts, anything like that that's going on throughout for the holidays, I can run across that too as well. So looks like we have quite a bit of things in the chat.
I think we covered all of them. The last thing was you were asking people what's the wiring configuration for the power supply. I think somebody from another country answered it as brown is plus, blue is negative.
Yeah. Okay. Yep. I just wanted to, in case anybody was using those colors. And then they have what color do they use for neutral? Is it white? No, blue, brown. I can't remember on my plugs.
Al, if you would like to answer that, or anybody else. Brown is positive and live. That's what a Ted Elf, hero of, I can't read your full name, but.
Okay.
Blue is negative or neutral.
Okay, that's the one I was having.
Green, yellow, because it's two colors. Green, yellow is ground or earth.
Yep. Okay. Awesome. Well,
on the AC side, yes, of course.
That's all I have for this for the build today.
Okay.
I want to. Do we have anybody else wants to chime in and give any input on what they've had with their experience? I would appreciate that. Otherwise, I'll just leave it open for any more questions or.
Yeah, let me just wrap up one little thing and we can go to comments. So I just want to give, again, this presentation was sponsored by Gilbert Engineering. So thank you very much. And I'll open up the floor for the next 8 minutes for any comments or questions.
Okay.
Hey, Keith, I do want to, Brian, sorry. Nathan, I just wanted to extend a huge thank you for filling in for us. I know it was short notice. I think you had about 14 days, but a huge thank you for filling in. I do appreciate that so much.
Hey, it's my pleasure, man. I was already mentally prepared for this because I've had so much experience with it. So it was a lot of fun. I just hope someone got something away from it.
Yeah, you did great. Another question here is, can we use 5/4 inch by 3 inch boards instead of steel for the frame?
Yeah, you can. You can use wood. A lot of people use that. I just know the cost of lumber is going up through the roof right now. And so this might be a good alternative for that you if you don't want to spend the money on wood. The reason I don't go to the wood products is because they get old, they get brittle, and so and you still have to paint them if you want them to last for a while. So for me, it's easier just to use the steel. I happen to have a little small welder, so it makes it easier for me to do it myself. But
And the person that asked that question was Bob from New Jersey, the guy that said he was building his first 56 panel enclosure.
okay. And anybody that's in this room today, I'm on Facebook. Feel free to look me up. There's my light show going across the tune-in sign right now. So if you have questions, I'm available to answer any outside of this room.
Somebody also just asked, is there a good YouTube video to show how to get the panel working in a show? I would suggest, well, maybe Nathan will have something, but I would also suggest checking out, there was a recent VCS video, I think today, discussing how to set it up in FPP.
There was, yes. Greg Mackery went over that. In fact, he was just right over this right before we came on here. So he covered a lot of that stuff. I've made a video out there also on how to get FPP working, how to get X-Lights talking to FPP, and so on.
So one more thing. So do you have any experience with Alibaba watertight enclosures for P10 and P10 panels? Also, Panel Daddy is here, and I guess he's the one that was doing the FPP class.
Yes, I should have called him Panel Daddy, not Greg, because everyone knows him as that. So he's the Panel Daddy on the Panel Whisperer, so to speak. But as far as the I just get Wired Watts. I know he sells those extruded aluminum enclosures. I don't think they're a bad product. So I've seen them. I've never used them. So
yeah,
he would be the first person I would contact about those if you're looking at going that route.
Panel Daddy agreed. He said, "Go." Ken sells them.
Thank you.
You said that you were on Facebook.
Yes.
You have your Facebook page, or?
Yeah, you can go to my personal page, which is Nathan Miller, or you can do Holiday Traditions Light Show is my Facebook page.
And if you're in Europe, Panel Daddy also has those enclosure parts, like Ken.
Yeah, panelsus.co. Is that it? Panel Daddy, if you're more than welcome to put that in chat if you want. There it is.
Yep, it's in chat. It's panelrus.co.uk.
There you go.
Okay, I'm gonna